The man's screams echo across the stone courtyard of Angkor Wat as the executioner raises the bronze blade once more. Blood pools between the carved sandstone blocks, seeping into cracks worn smooth by 1,000 such executions. The air hangs thick with the metallic tang of death and the sweet, cloying smoke of incense meant to purify the sacred space. But no amount of sandalwood can mask what happens here. The condemned noble, once draped in silk the colour of sapphires, now stripped to mere cotton stained with his own terror, cannot stop shaking. His crime? Speaking the king's name without proper deference. His punishment? Written in the sacred laws of Angkor, inscribed on temple walls where the gods themselves can witness justice. Around the courtyard's edge, court officials stand motionless in their hierarchical positions, faces carved from stone, eyes fixed forward. They dare not look away. To show mercy is to question divine authority. To question divine authority is to join the condemned. The morning sun strikes the golden spires of the Bayon Temple, where 54 stone faces of the God King gaze down upon the proceedings with serene, enigmatic smiles. They have watched this ritual 10,000 times. They will watch it 10,000 more. The executioner's blade catches the light. What drove one of history's most magnificent civilizations to devise punishments so horrific that chronicles refuse to record their full details? What system of justice could transform divine authority into instruments of unspeakable cruelty? The Khmer Empire at its zenith stretches across the heart of Southeast Asia like a jeweled net cast by the gods themselves. From the Temple Mountain of Angkor Wat, its 5 towers piercing the heavens, to the sprawling irrigation systems that turn jungle into rice fields of impossible green, this is a civilization that has bent nature to its will. The year is 1186, and King Jayavarman VII sits upon the throne of Devarajas, the god kings who rule not merely by conquest, but by cosmic mandate. Walk through the royal capital and your senses drown in splendor. The Grand Plaza stretches before the royal palace, paved with laterite stones so precisely fitted that no mortar binds the blocks. Silk merchants from China unroll bolts of fabric that shimmer like captured moonlight. The air vibrates with languages, Khmer, Sanskrit, Chan, ordered world back into the realm of men. This is why the Khmer legal code, inscribed on copper plates and temple walls, does not merely punish crime. It restores cosmic balance through calculated suffering. The palace complex sprawls across terraces and courtyards, each level representing a step closer to the divine. Here, the royal family moves through their days in choreographed ritual. The king receives petitions at dawn, seated upon a throne of carved sandalwood inlaid with precious stones. Ministers prostrate themselves, foreheads pressed to cool marble, speaking only when granted permission by the precise angle of the royal hand. In the women's quarters, the queen and her retinue of concubines inhabit spaces fragrant with jasmine oil and bitter herbs. They move like painted shadows behind silk screens, their voices never raised above whispers. They understand what the common people cannot, that proximity to divine power is both blessing and curse. The king's favour can elevate a family for generations. His displeasure can erase bloodlines from history. The legal apparatus of the empire operates through a hierarchy as rigid as temple architecture. Provincial governors report to regional administrators, who answer to the king's ministers, who speak for the god king himself. At every level, scribes record each judgment, each punishment, each restoration of order. These records, written on palm leaf manuscripts in the flowing script of sacred Sanskrit, document a system where justice and terror have become indistinguishable. Common crimes receive common punishments: fines, temporary enslavement, public humiliation in the marketplace stocks. But crimes against the cosmic order, crimes that threaten the delicate balance between heaven and earth, these demand responses that will echo through generations. A merchant caught using false weights might lose his hands, the instruments of his deception. A minor official taking bribes beyond the accepted custom might find himself paraded through the streets, his corruption proclaimed by heralds, his family's honor destroyed more thoroughly than any physical torture could accomplish. But there are darker punishments, whispered about in the markets, hinted at in the carvings that decorate lesser-known temple walls. punishments for those whose crimes cut deeper than mere theft or corruption. In the temple of Ta Prohm, where tree roots now strangle the stones, there are carvings the guides do not explain to visitors. The simple treason of plotting against the king, but the cosmic treason of practicing forbidden rituals, of attempting to commune with demons, of breaking the barriers that separate the world of men from the chaos beyond. The punishment must fit not merely the crime, but the magnitude of the cosmic wound they have inflicted. The king's voice when he speaks is soft as silk drawn across a blade. The accused family kneels in the throne room as dawn breaks over Angkor. They are the House of Surya Varman, a name that means protected by the sun god, but no divine protection reaches them now. The patriarch, once a general who commanded armies that pushed the empire's borders to the sea, keeps his eyes fixed on the marble floor. His wife, daughter of a provincial governor, clutches prayer beads that click softly in the suffocating silence. Their 3 children, 2 sons trained in warfare and Sanskrit, 1 daughter promised to a prince, have been stripped of their noble robes and dressed in the coarse hemp of the condemned. The evidence against them lies displayed on a low table of polished teak, clay figurines twisted into obscene shapes, palm leaf manuscripts covered in script that runs backward, mirrors of bronze buried facing downward to trap souls. An informant, a servant whose own family the general once saved from starvation, has revealed what happened in the family's private shrine at midnight, when proper prayers to Buddha and the ancestors gave way to older, darker invocations. They sought power beyond what the cosmic order permitted. They sought to bend fate itself, to elevate their bloodline through communion with entities that dwell in the spaces between worlds. In doing so, they committed the unforgivable. They questioned whether the king's divine mandate was truly absolute. The king does not rise from his throne. He does not need to. When he speaks, every word falls like a stone into still water, ripples spreading through the assembled court. "You have broken the world," he says simply. The general's wife begins to weep, not the delicate tears permitted to noble ladies, but great, shuddering sobs that shake her entire body. One of the sons attempts to speak, to offer explanation or plea, but a guard's hand clamps over his mouth. There is no defense against cosmic crime. There are no mitigating circumstances when the fabric of reality has been torn. The king's chief. The sun sets 3 days hence. They will use bronze implements heated in sacred fires, applying them to specific points on the body in a sequence prescribed by ancient texts. The goal is not death. Death would be mercy. The goal is transformation, the systematic conversion of a human being into a living warning against cosmic transgression. His wife will watch. This is not cruelty, it is pedagogy. She must witness what happens when the boundaries of the ordered world are breached. Only when her husband's consciousness finally flees his ruined body will her own punishment begin. She will be delivered to the temple of Preah Khan, to the chambers beneath the main sanctuary where the stones drink blood and echo with prayers that turn backwards. There, the temple priests, those who serve functions the official chronicles never mention, will ensure her soul is properly prepared for the next life. The process takes 7 days. Few remain conscious past the 3rd. The children present a more delicate problem. They are young enough that their participation in the forbidden rituals may have been coerced or unknowing. The king's mercy, such as it is, extends to them in modified form. They will not be executed. Instead, they will be given to the Temple of Ta Som to serve in the lowest capacity, not as priests or scholars, but as those who clean the blood from the sacrifice stones, who carry away the remains of offerings both animal and human, who learn through daily intimacy with death what it means to violate cosmic law. But this is not the worst of it. The worst is reserved for the family name itself. Scribes are already at work in the palace archives, carefully excising every reference to the House of Surya Varman from official records. On temple walls where the family's donations are carved in stone, masons chip away the inscriptions. In the provincial capital where the general once governed, his achievements are attributed to nameless officials or credited to the king's direct intervention. Within a generation, it will be as though they never existed. This is the true punishment. Not the destruction of the body, which is temporary, but the obliteration of memory, which echoes through eternity. As the guards move forward to take the condemned family away, a sound ripples through the court. Not a gasp, no one would dare such a display, but a collective intake of breath. A subtle shift in posture that speaks of recognition. Then he turns to face his fate, shoulders square, as though marching to battle one final time. Outside, in the execution grounds beyond the city walls, the wooden frames are already being constructed. The executioners sharpen their bronze implements and recite prayers asking for precision, for skill, for the strength to see their sacred duty through to completion. They do not take pleasure in what they do. This is not sadism. It is cosmology, enacted in flesh and blood. In the markets, the news spreads like smoke through bamboo walls. The house of Surya Varman has fallen. The whispers contain equal parts horror and satisfaction. Horror at the punishments, satisfaction that the cosmic order has been maintained. Merchants touch amulets hidden beneath their tunics. Mothers pull their children closer. Everyone understands that they have been reminded of what holds civilization together. Not love, not prosperity, but the absolute certainty that transgression will be met with suffering so complete it becomes legend. As the sun climbs higher, casting the shadow of Angkor Wat across the city like a sundial marking the hours until execution, one question hangs unspoken in the air. How many other families harbour secrets that, if revealed, would see them dragged to those same wooden frames? How many whispered prayers in private shrines skirt the edges of the forbidden? In a palace built to house gods made flesh, everyone is guilty of something. The execution grounds lie beyond the third wall of the city, where the ordered geometry of Angkor gives way to scrubland, and the jungle begins its patient reclamation. Here, the ground is stained black, not with soil, but with generations of blood soaked so deeply into the earth that nothing will grow except a peculiar species of grass with leaves the colour of rust. General Surya Varman, though he has already lost the right to that name, is bound to the wooden frame as the sun crests the eastern tree line. The frame itself is a marvel of engineering, precisely angled to keep the body upright, constructed from ironwood that will not splinter or crack, with leather straps that tighten rather than loosen as the victim struggles. Around its base, channels carved into stone direct the flow of blood away from the executioner's feet. Nothing is left to chance. This is ritual, not butchery. The crowd that gathers is larger than expected. Thousands have come, not just from the capital, but from villages days away. Sanskrit prayers. Inside, nestled in silk the colour of dried blood, lie the implements of his craft. Each has been blessed by temple priests, consecrated for the specific purpose of inflicting measured suffering. The largest, a curved blade whose edge catches sunlight like captured fire, he sets aside. That is for later, for the final mercy that will come only after cosmic balance has been restored. He begins with smaller instruments, needles of bronze, heated in a brazier until they glow like small stars. The first touches the condemned man's left hand, inserted beneath the fingernail with precision that speaks of years of practice. The scream that erupts is not fully human. It is the sound of a soul trying to escape its flesh prison and failing. The executioner works methodically, moving from fingernails to toenails, then to more sensitive areas. Each application of heat is calculated not to kill, but to maximize consciousness and suffering. Between each stage, physicians, appointed by the court, examine the condemned, administering herbs that prevent the mercy of unconsciousness, compounds that heighten sensation rather than dull it. The general's wife watches from a platform constructed for this purpose. Guards flank her, but they are unnecessary. She cannot look away. Her eyes are held open by something beyond physical restraint, perhaps the understanding that this is her final service to her husband, to bear witness to his dissolution. Tears stream down her face, but she makes no sound. To scream would be to suggest that the king's justice is unjust, and that path leads only to joining her husband on the frame beside his. By midday, the general's body has become a geography of trauma. Burns create patterns across his skin like obscene calligraphy. The executioner moves to the next phase, systematic breaking of small bones. Fingers first, each one snapped with almost casual precision. The sound carries across the crowd, sharp cracks like green wood in fire. Some in the audience turn away. Most do not. The sun reaches its apex and begins its descent. The condemned man still lives, though what persists can barely be called life. His consciousness flickers like a candle in wind, present, absent, present again. The physicians force more herbs between his shattered lips. The cosmic order requires that he remain aware for the full 3 days prescribed. As the first day draws to a close, temple priests arrive to perform evening rituals. They circle the execution ground, chanting sutra applied to exposed muscle. The screaming has given way to something worse, a constant low moaning that sounds like wind through abandoned temples. In the palace, the king receives reports of the execution's progress over his morning meal. He eats rice flavoured with coconut milk and fresh mango, sips tea scented with jasmine. The reports satisfy him. Cosmic order is being restored. The wound, in reality caused by the family's transgression, is being sutured closed through calculated suffering. By the third day, the crowd has thinned but not disappeared. Those who remain have the look of pilgrims, people who have travelled far to witness something they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. Parents point and explain to children, this is what happens when the boundaries are crossed. This is what maintains the world. The general's wife is brought forward as the sun reaches its highest point on the third day. She is made to stand directly before the frame, close enough to see what remains of the man she married, close enough to see his eyes, still conscious, still aware, focus on her face. The chief executioner approaches with the curved blade. This, at last, is mercy. A single cut, precisely placed, and the general's suffering ends. His body sags against the restraints. The crowd releases a collective breath. But for the wife, the ordeal is just beginning. She has taken not to a public execution ground, but to the temple of Priya Khan, through doors that close behind her with the finality of tomb seals. What happens in those chambers beneath the sanctuary is not recorded in official chronicles, but the screams that echo from ventilation shafts provide their own documentation. They continue for 6 days. On the 7th day, silence. The children, delivered to Tarsom Temple, begin their service. Each morning they wake before dawn to clean the blood from sacrifice stones. Each evening they burn the remains of offerings in fires that never quite seem to consume everything. At night they sleep on stone floors and dream of wooden frames and bronze implements that glow like stars. Within 3 months the eldest son dies, officially of fever, though the temple servants whisper of wounds that appeared on his body in the night, wounds that match the pattern of his father's torture. The daughter lasts a year before drowning herself in the temple's sacred pool. Whisper the story, not using the family's name for that would be dangerous, but speaking of those who reached too far, or the ones who broke the world. The tale becomes teaching tool, cautionary legend, proof that the cosmic order cannot be challenged. Years later, a Chinese diplomat named Zhou Daguan will visit Angkor and record his observations. He will write of the empire's magnificence, its temples and irrigation systems, its sophisticated court culture. He will also write, in passages that make later scholars uncomfortable, about the punishments he witnessed. They have methods of execution, he notes carefully, that ensure cosmic balance is maintained. The suffering is measured in days, not moments. But Zhou Daguan is a diplomat. He records only what can be spoken aloud. The deeper truth, the truth carved into the collective memory of everyone who witnessed the House of Suryavarman's fall, remains unwritten. It exists instead in the way people avert their eyes when passing certain temple walls, in the herbs mothers hang above their doors to ward off cosmic imbalance, in the silence that falls when someone speaks too boldly about royal authority. The execution grounds beyond the third wall remain. The grass with rust-coloured leaves continues to grow, and on certain nights, when the wind moves through the abandoned frame still standing there, it makes sounds that some say resemble screaming, and others insist is merely bamboo creaking in the dark. The Khmer Empire endures for another 2 centuries after the fall of the House of Suryavarman, its temples rising ever higher toward heaven, its punishments growing ever more elaborate in their cruelty. But something has shifted in the cosmic order it claimed to protect. In 1431, the Siamese army will breach Angkor's walls. The god kings will flee south, abandoning their temple cities to the jungle's patient embrace. Scholars will debate for centuries what caused the collapse: climate change, overextension of resources, the silting of irrigation channels. They will write dissertations on economic factors and military defeats, on the rise of Theravada Buddhism and its challenge to divine kingship. But they will not write about what the survivors knew in their bones: that a civilization built on absolute cosmic order, maintained through calculated suffering, contains within itself the seeds of its own dissolution. That fear, wielded long enough and thoroughly enough, the last son of the House of Suryavarman dies in his sleep at the age of 60, having never spoken a word in 4 decades. The servants who find him note that his face, in death, wears an expression that might be peace, or might be the final erasure of everything that once made him human. But here is the question that lingers, the mystery that no chronicle addresses. In those final moments before the curved blade brought mercy, what did General Suryavarman see behind his shattered eyes? Did he recant his cosmic transgression? Did he accept that the boundaries of the ordered world were absolute and just? Or did he see something else? A vision of empire built not on dharma but on terror, not on cosmic truth but on the systematic conversion of human beings into warnings. Did he understand, as consciousness flickered like a dying flame, that the greatest crime was not his attempt to breach the boundaries of the permissible, but the system itself that demanded such boundaries be maintained through suffering? The stone faces of the Bayon temple still gaze out across the ruins of Angkor, their enigmatic smiles unchanged by centuries of rain and root. They watched the executions. They witnessed the fall. They know the answer to questions the living dare not ask. But stone keeps its secrets better than flesh ever could. The Khmer Empire's punishments were not aberrations. They were the foundation upon which divine authority rested. Every bronze implement heated in sacred fires, every scream echoing from temple chambers, every family erased from history. These were not excesses of power but expressions of its fundamental nature. And perhaps this is why the jungle reclaimed Angkor so completely, why the temples that took generations to build were abandoned in a single generation. Because eventually, every society built on calculated suffering must answer the one question it cannot resolve through torture or erasure. What happens when fear stops working? The execution grounds are gone now, buried beneath centuries of leaf mould and new growth. But the question remains, carved deeper than any inscription on any temple wall, echoing through every civilization that ever confused cruelty with justice, terror with order, absolute power with cosmic truth. Some questions cannot be answered. They can only be inherited.